one of the things that we hear about Iran over and over is that there is no freedom of press. Now, this is very interesting. If you drive, if you walk anywhere in Iran, in small cities, in big cities, and I spend most of my time in Tehran, which is the capital. So this is what I saw there. Literally every couple of blocks, you see this huge thing. It's a kiosk. They call it a newsstand, which is a very different concept than we have from newsstand, which is those two little things that has a Pioneer Press and Star and Trib, and pretty soon there's going to be one, and pretty soon there's going to be none, probably. But newsstand in Iran is a whole different concept. It's this, you can picture like these kiosks that you see in Mall of America or someplace, you know, these huge places. And it's a happening place. It's not a dead place. There are people there standing, talking, arguing. In Tehran, for example, these newsstands probably have somewhere between, it depends on, because I'll tell you in a minute why, it depends somewhere between 20 and 25 daily newspapers from this just one city. And then they also have dailies from other smaller towns, smaller cities, which that would end, the ones that they cover in Tehran are probably another 30 or 40 from other cities. So we're so far up to like 60 daily newspapers. And then there are weeklies and monthlies and newspapers from all over the world in different languages and all of these things. And it's amazing, you get to these newsstands by 10:30, 11, most of this stuff is gone. People have bought them and you can't find them anymore. So you have to get to the newsstand really early. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that there is freedom of press in Iran? If we talk in absolute terms, well, of course not. And we do hear from time to time that a newspaper or a daily said something about the government and then they got shut down. And this happens. But it's fascinating because a newspaper says something that they just overstep their boundaries, say something that the government thinks that they shouldn't have been saying or talking about it, and they close it. Within a week, the same newspapers with the same editorial board, with the same people, open up under a different name. And they keep saying the same things. So it isn't really that altogether when people want to say something, they're totally shut out of it. The government, I think, in some ways keeps face, you know, because, well, you said this, so we shut you down. But, you know, yeah, you can say it under a different name. So if we talk in terms of absolute freedom of press, well, no. But I genuinely argue that the amount of news, the true news, the real news that you get in Iran is a lot more than what we get here, which is maybe not saying a whole lot. The second thing that I just want to touch on a little bit of what you see in Iran, we have this other really misconception about women in Iran. If anytime I ask people to just picture a woman in Iran, all of a sudden, you know, the pictures that comes to people's minds are these people that are covered, but that's not all we see. Behind that just covering, we see oppression. We see submissive people. We see people that are really not in charge of their lives. And this is so very false. This is probably one of the worst biases that we have about Iran. Because these women, although they are covered, but they, by no means, they're submissive and out of the general life of the society. If you just see them walk in the streets, you can tell that that's not true. By the way they walk, by the way they carry themselves, by the way, but what they wear and what they don't wear, but the way they approach you, it's just, you can see when you face these women that this is not a picture of a submissive person. This is not somebody that's just going to take it and not say anything. Right now, some of the statistics is fascinating. For example, in higher education in Iran, 64% of women in 64% of the population in higher education are women. The participation in labor force, this is another thing we think when we talk about women in Iran, that they're not out there working in the labor force. They're all at home and covered and probably being beaten up, and I don't know what else. But the percentage of labor force participation of women in Iran right now, it is higher than it was in the middle of 70s, which was the height of the secular, the Shah's government, pro-Western liberal policies, or whatever you wanted to call them. And at that point, one of the points of the Shah's government was that they were liberating women. And by that, they meant, they can come into the labor force and all that. With all of that, still the labor force participation is higher right now than it was then. 1979 Constitution, the Islamic Constitution that was written by a very small group of people, 5, 7, 8, somewhere there. A couple of them were women. So they were involved in writing the Constitution that the government right now has. They are CEOs of the companies, they are writers, they're government employees, they own their own businesses. Some of the best newspapers, especially weeklies that come out in Iran, the editors and the publishers are women. 100 years, Iran has never started a war. They have never attacked or invaded anywhere in the world. The number that we have for the United States is anywhere between 150 and 175 places that we have been the aggressor. So what is it that's making us so scared of these people? What do we think they're going to do? What do we think they're going to do?